Thank you so much, 826. And I have to say, there's so much excitement here. Just before we were to come up, Legacy, if I've got this right, you were reacting to Angie Thomas telling you, we've all met before in different events, and Legacy, you were reacting to Angie just kind of casually mentioning that, oh, her mother remembered you.
Yeah.
Which meant a lot to you. And Angie, we've spoken before. It's so great to speak with you again. We were in Cambridge, I think, at that time.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's so good to speak with you both. Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure, and we're going to get right to it. But I want to just fill in a little bit here. Legacy is a Boston-based writer, poet, social justice activist, superstar in my eyes. She's also a natural hair enthusiast. That may come up. A former member of 826 Boston's award-winning slam poetry team. And she went on to coach the team at the John D. O'Brien School of Math and Science, which she graduated from. In her spare time, she likes to sing and write songs. So I think that's going to make its way into this conversation because we know, Angie, how much you've been influenced by music. So we're going to get to Legacy in 1 second. But also Angie Thomas, I can't imagine there are those who don't know, but already in the firmament of YA novels, you flew from Jackson, Mississippi to the top of the New York Times bestseller list with 2017's The Hate U Give, which followed the teenager star Carter as her unarmed black friend is killed by a white police officer. Then came 2019's On the Come Up, the story of a teen rapper who goes viral and the consequences of that. The producer of This Is Us is now writing the screenplay for the film adaptation. There are some of us, do not call us on Tuesday night. We're watching This Is Us. And your third book just came out, The Concrete Rose. It's a prequel to The Hate U Give. So we want to talk all about that. But Angie Thomas, welcome virtually back to Boston. And I just want to ask you before we bring Legacy, and she's got so many questions, as a younger writer who's looking up to you, so many questions to ask of you. But I'm just wondering, how are you feeling about being in this moment? We talked about 2017's The Hate U Give, writing about one of the first to write in a YA novel about, unarmed young black men killed by white police officers. And then here we are in a year of racial reckoning. Do you think about that? Like, wow, I'm positioned for this moment.
I do. I've thought about it a lot. Over the past couple of months, I've had a lot of young people specifically who've reached out to me and they're like, Angie, your book is coming to life. And I have to remind them, I tell them it was alive in 2017. It's been alive since the inception of this country. It's just that now more of us are becoming aware of it. But I'm thankful to know that my book also has empowered young people for this moment. I'm often labeled as being the voice for them, and I have to correct that because the fact is they have their own voices, they have their power. I'm just their microphone. So I'm thankful to know that for this moment, I gave them something to look to for encouragement, for empowerment, to help them remember that there's power in their words, there's power in their voices, there's power in them to change the world, to change movements.
Well, but yes, you're absolutely right. And places like 826 with the programs that they've had, it's like there's been a nexus that seems to be, meeting of the work of groups like 826, which have been empowering a lot of young people of color to tell their stories. Then you come, people like you who they see actually do it. And I was reminded of how much this has been growing in leaps and bounds. I don't know if you saw the children's section of this past Sunday's New York Times book review. And it's the children's books. And look at all the stories about young black people. I mean, when I was coming up, there weren't any. And then I'm thinking of, this is one of my favorite new books, I Am Every Good Thing. Terrific new book. Yeah, it's so great. I mean, I'm thinking of just how much the industry has grown because of writers like you. I mean, do you feel that a little more elbow room in the industry in general?
I do. I'm seeing changes. I will always say children's literature specifically has a long way to go, but there are more people who are recognizing the power of diversity in kids lit. Dr. Rudine Sims Bishop often says that books are either mirrors, windows, and sliding glass doors. And the fact of the matter is, all three are important. So it's important for Black kids to have these books now that show them themselves, but it's important for other kids to have these books to show them Black kids. It's important for them to get that window in that sliding glass door. So I'm very I'm hopeful for what's to come in children's lit. I'm thankful for what's happening in children's literature, and I can't wait to see what it looks like 5 years from now.
Yeah. Well, I have a feeling that Legacy Thornton might be involved. Legacy, I know you have some questions you want to ask directly, writer to writer. So go for it.
Yes. Oh, first off, hi, Angie. It's nice seeing you again. One of the questions as a writer, I just wanted to know, like, how did your stories come to you? You know, like, I know you got a lot of experience just from, your life and, your perspective, but I was wondering, like, is it that you imagine, like, everything in your head, like this realistic fictional story, and then you just try and, like, jot them all down, like, scene for scene? Or, like, how does that work?
It seems like with every story, there's a different origin story. Every single book that I've done so far, there's a different origin story. The Hate You Give, I was inspired by some of my own experiences to write that novel. I was a lot like Star, living in two worlds and being two different people in these two very different worlds. And when a young man named Oscar Grant lost his life at the hands of police brutality, I was around a lot of white classmates who didn't understand the outrage. And that and my frustration about the situation inspired me to eventually write a story. With On the Come Up, the character of Bree was someone I always knew I wanted to tell about because I was once a young person who looked at hip hop as a way of expressing myself. I think, though, that with both books and now with Concrete Rose, even my third one, the common factor of their origins is that it always starts with the characters for me. I'm huge on starting with character. Plot is great, but I feel as if you could have the best plot in the world, but if you don't have great characters to carry it through, you are wasting your time. So I always get characters first. I always get these images of young people in my mind and bits and pieces of who they are. And it intrigues me so much that I want to figure out a story for them, that I want to explore their lives. And I always ask myself, who are they at the beginning of this? And who do I want them to be at the end of it? And so that's usually the main thing that happens with every single book I come up with. And how I get there is, I still can't really tell you. It comes from a lot of different places. Sometimes I will dream up stuff and put it in a book.
Can I just jump in just to say for a second? What you just said is the definition of a story. It's like the Homeric journey. They start, things happen, and then how do they end up? Same with a reader. We start reading and then things happen and how do they end up? So I love hearing that's part of the way you craft it.
Absolutely. I think the best books at some point or another, they have to answer that question. Who is this character when this book starts and who are they when it finishes? Are they the same person or are they a completely different person? Mm-hmm. And I can say with so far all of my books, they're completely different people by the end. And I really want to show young people that change is inevitable. It's okay to evolve. It's okay to change. And we're all still figuring it out. Even when you're not so young, you're still figuring it out. I know I'm figuring it out every single day. So I hope I'm not the same person next year that I was today.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you. Yeah. Star, she was in The Hate You Give, she was a very outspoken advocate for her people and like the Black Lives Matter movement, especially when her best friend Khalil died. So what is your position on young Black women being on the front lines when it comes to protesting?
I'm very proud of them, but I wish it wasn't necessary. Mm-hmm. I totally wish. I remember recently someone showed me a picture of this little girl who couldn't have been any more than 8 years old, and she was at a protest for George Floyd. And she was screaming out, yelling, and letting everybody know that his life mattered. And all I could think was, I love that magic and that power inside of her, but this shouldn't be necessary. You know, it shouldn't be that this image of this child is what gets into people and changes their perception. It shouldn't be that she even has to know what happened, that something like this happened from the get-go. I am so proud of young Black women who are getting on the forefront of social justice and fighting for Black lives and making themselves heard. But I'm also wondering, when will everybody else stand up, speak up, and do the same? So that the burden is not theirs and theirs alone. So often it seems as if that's what happens. We see the power of Black women. We just saw it this past week, you know, and we know what we're capable of doing and what we do and what we have done. And I just want everybody else to step up to the plate too, so it doesn't seem as if this is our responsibility alone.
Just jumping in, when you say this past week in Georgia, Black women are given the credit for, you know, almost flipping that state to the Democrats. Yeah, and definitely pushing 2 Senate races into a runoff. The Black women, Stacey and others are, you know, behind that. But I know, Legacy, jump back in.
Okay, yeah, sure. So we know that there will be a movie adaptation for On the Come Up, like there was for The Hate U Give. I'm really excited about that. And I also, again, wanted to congratulate you for your success on both The Hate U Give and On the Come Up. Like, just really well done. So I was wondering about the casting. A couple of my friends were kind of disappointed, like, once they read the book. They imagined, you know, the star to be different than what they saw on screen. And, like, how much of an... I guess impact did you have, like, with the casting? Like, how did you feel about the casting and stuff like that?
Well, there's a big misconception about the whole casting situation, and a lot of people don't know that Amandla was cast as Star about 1.5 years before there was ever a cover for The Hate U Give and the book was ever out. Amandla was one of the first people to ever read it outside of, like, me, my family, and my agent and my editor. She was one of the first people to ever get to read it. And so when she was attached to the role, it was, for me, I was happy because so much of who Star is was influenced by young women like Amandla. Amandla has been very vocal about social justice, and had that whole "do not cash crop my cornrows" thing that came out. So when I saw that,
Could you explain that? Could you explain that to?
For like, I can say a little bit about it.
Go ahead.
Yeah, because I love Amandla Stenberg, and I don't think when we saw each other, I don't think I remembered to ask you if you could, like, tell her, like, I love her, or just, like, put my name somewhere in there, like. But Don't Cash Crop on my cornrows was pretty much about cultural appropriation. And a lot of people, like, people that aren't Black people were getting credit for, you know, Black culture pretty much, and, like, Black hairstyles and what was before deemed ghetto and just not favorable in the workplace was now deemed, you know, stylish when on, like, white people and such. So
Yes. So that was like her entire senior project in high school. And I was blown away when I saw that. And at the time I was writing The Hate U Give. So when the opportunity came, when they were like, we want to let Amandla read it, I was on board 1,000%. So is colorism a problem in Hollywood? Oh, absolutely. 1,000%. In fact, I'm a producer on the Come Up film, and we're making it a priority that we want to cast a dark-skinned Black girl to play Bree.
Yes.
You know, because we understand the importance. So I still think Amandla did a phenomenal job. And I think that the whole conversation has made Hollywood, if nothing else, take notice and hopefully start to, you know, keep that in mind as they cast roles. But I will say that when Amandla was cast as Star, it was about who Amandla was, her talent, and how so much of her life was reflected in Star's life. So again, the conversations, though, I'm glad they're happening.
And by the way, here's the cover. I'm just going to put the book back here so that you can see the cover there. Continue, Legacy.
Okay. Yeah. I love the cover. And I was looking like a couple days ago. I was just like, brushing over the books, and it seems like all of your books, like The Hate You Give, On the Come Up, and even Concrete Rose, they have like similar like aesthetics. So I don't know if that was intentional, but I like the way that happened.
Yes.
I was going to ask. So when it comes to just like on the note of just paving, not necessarily paving the way, but highlighting like Black stories and just Black conversations. I kind of like group you in with Issa Rae. Yeah, I don't know how you feel about that, but
That's
I
an
love
honor.
both, so. Yeah, just sorry, but definitely like when it comes to just brushing over the books, all of the characters have different family dynamics, different issues. And I love how, you purposely did that, and you put them in the same world, but made them completely different, like not even really know each other, just to like highlight the fact that not all Black people are homogenous. And I think that that's really dope. So on that note, I wanted to ask, like, what are some other dynamics you would like to portray? Like what are some other like levels you would like to give to Black people? Like I know Issa Rae, she did she's making it known like there are awkward Black girls, there are many different types of Black people. So what are some things you'd like to explore in that?
Yeah, I love Issa and I love what she's doing. And for me, it's definitely important to show through my stories the different kinds of family dynamics. When I wrote The Hate You Give, I specifically gave Star this 2-parent loving household because so often people act as if that doesn't exist or it's a unicorn in the Black community, and that's totally not true. Black fathers exist. In fact, studies show that of all demographics, Black fathers are more involved in their children's lives than any other demographics. And I wanted to show that on page because I felt it was important. And then with On the Come Up, it was kind of done in response to all the people who acted as if because Star had this 2-parent household that made her better than kids who don't. And I wanted to show this young woman who her family it looks different than the quote unquote traditional family. And she has a mom, but she also has her brother and she has her grandparents, and they all are part of her village and in important ways. And we shouldn't take away from that just because it doesn't look like the quote unquote norm. And now, like with Concrete Rose, I get to look at families and the way that the prison system affects them and affects the way that they look. We get to see Maverick at 17 years old as him and his mom, and his dad is in prison. And what it means for him as the child of someone who is incarcerated, the feeling of having a parent that is in your life but not in your life, who you can't just go see at the drop of a dime, and you have to go through all of these things just to get a phone call from them, and all of these hurdles that shouldn't be necessary. So it was important for me to craft that for young people who are dealing with that. But like now I'm working on my 4th book, which is for younger readers, and it's a fantasy novel, and I get to write this young character, this young 12-year-old girl and her single dad, and the dynamics of that relationship, and it's been fun already. So and anytime that I can show us in different ways, I'm gonna go for it. Anytime that I can go, and even if it's falling into what people may think is a stereotype of a single mom or something like that, I'm gonna give you the reasons why this person is a single mom, or what this family looks like beyond just it being a single mom household, and what this village looks like. Because Black families period, look so many different ways, and we have to stop putting that term in a box and acting as if there's only one legitimate way for people to be a family.
Right. Thank you. And yeah, I'm glad that you started talking to us about your new novel, about your new novels and your books and stuff. I think it's really dope. I definitely wanted to know more about I guess going back to your inspiration for your books, especially Concrete Rose. Yeah, I asked my friends like on like Facebook, like what are some questions that they would like to know from you? And so yeah, inspiration for Concrete Rose, and just inspiration for some of the characters, like for example, the dad and The Hate You Give. Like, did these characters I don't want to say bite off of like certain people in your real life, but yeah, that and
Yeah.
alcohol.
I got you. Maverick has always been like a reader favorite of all of my characters. Like, and it's been interesting to me to see the wide range of readers who love him. I get young people who are like, Maverick reminds me so much of my dad. And then I get the moms coming up behind them in the line and they're like, oh my God, Maverick. I love me some Maverick. I want to marry Maverick. And I'm like, he's a character, but okay. But also people were intrigued by him because the question was always, how did he become this dad and this man that we see in The Hate U Give with the things that we know about him? We know that he used to be in a gang, that he used to sell drugs, that he was once imprisoned, and now he's a member of his community who's actually making a difference and owns a business and all of these different things. But beyond that, he's an active, involved, loving father, and so people always were asking me, how did he get to be this? And it made me start to ask myself that. But I think the true inspiration actually came from the film adaptation. Russell Hornsby, who played Maverick, did a phenomenal job in that film. I still think he was robbed of some awards. I stand by that. But he did a phenomenal job. But while we were filming, I was on set for 6 weeks. And I had a chance to get to talk to him. And I got a chance to see him become Maverick. Russell is a phenomenal actor because when he would step on set, he was automatically Maverick, whether the camera was rolling or not. He changed his whole persona, the way he carried himself, the way he spoke, the way he walked. Everything, the music he listened to. When he was Maverick, it was different. He truly took that character on. And we would have conversations and he would ask me things that made me think deeper about my character. And I have to admit, some stuff I answered on the spot. It was stuff I hadn't thought about. And as I was telling him these things, I was like, that sounds good actually, Maybe I should explore that a little more. And so having those conversations with him really inspired me to write this character's story and turn it into a novel, because I feel as if, one, so many people want to know these things about Maverick, and two, it could be real inspiring for the real Mavericks out there. The real young men who are often written off and we don't give them nearly enough chances because of one mistake or two mistakes or whatever. I think that it can be inspiring for them and give them some hope, and hopefully also show the rest of us the beauty that really lies within them.
Yeah.
I want to turn my light on because I'm getting really dark.
That happens.
Yes.
Yeah.
You guys can't see my face, so I'm gonna just turn my light on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ta-da! Yay.
Okay, great. So my last question to you, Angie, is we know that you love hip hop and just music in general, and it was kind of there when books weren't. So I was wondering, what song in general would you use to describe or personify each book that you've written?
Which song for each book? That's a great question. For The Hate U Give, it would probably be Changes by Tupac. For On the Come Up, it would probably be Juicy by the Notorious B.I.G., which I know to Tupac fans, they're like, why would you name the Biggie song? Let me live, y'all. Okay. Or I'd actually go with also UNITY by Queen Latifah. And for Concrete Rose, that one is a little harder. It's hard to say that there's a song. I'd go to the poem, The Rose That Grew from Concrete by Tupac, which obviously inspired the title of the novel. So this is, for me, like the last book I'll write in Garden Heights, and it felt fitting to go back to the poem that inspired even the name Garden Heights. I always felt like I was writing about a giant concrete garden, and I'm just pointing out the roses that are growing in the cracks. So it felt fitting to go to that poem for the title of the last book set in that concrete garden.
Okay.
Terrific.
Thank you.
Well, this has been so great. first of all, to hear from Legacy. It was just a terrific writer and someone who's benefited from 826 Boston and is giving back so much, Legacy, with the work that you do. But I just guess, Angie, did you have anything? I mean, you had a professor who said to you, it sounded like you were doing a lot of code switching, trying to be all sorts of different people, and you had a professor who said, write what you know. And we're hearing from Legacy, who's hanging on your every word. Did you have something what do you think the benefit of something like an 826 Boston, which is giving young people their voice? What do you think the benefit is?
The benefit is the investment it's going to make it's making into the future. Organizations like 826 Boston, they are literally helping to craft the next set of leaders of this world. Young people who have voices now become adults who have voices. There's so many people who don't recognize the power that's within them because they've never been told that it's there. And by having creative outlets like writing as a way to make themselves heard, it gives them tools that will benefit us all. So I think had I had something like 826 Boston, I would have benefited greatly. I would have known that I could tell stories, that I could use my voice, that words had power, and that I had the power to use them to craft stories that could change lives. I would have probably written The Hate U Give way sooner than I did. And I just think that we need more of that. We need more organizations like this. We need more, I call it a movement. We need more movements like this because we see what happens when you have adults who don't feel like they have a voice, who don't make themselves heard, who just go with the flow and never feel as if they can challenge the status quo. We end up stagnant. So I'm so appreciative for the work that they're doing. And I hope that you all are as well, so much so that you decide to invest in the future by supporting this organization and the work that they're doing. We may have messed up, our current generations may have messed up and given them a whole lot to have to deal with in the future. But I think that these kids are going to be all right.
Well, I wasn't fishing. But I agree. This is the place where, you want to support. And listening to Legacy Thornton, a product of 826 Boston, but also somebody who's given back and is now, a writer, a poet, a social justice activist. I mean, you lift us. And Angie, boy, I tell you, every time I speak with you, I feel I'm a little bit higher off the ground. So thank you so much for spending some time with all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.